And we're back with some more Rimworld and a quick tutorial on weapons and damage. Now, I had to come up with a testing scenario for this, and there's nothing that's perfect, unfortunately. There's strengths and weaknesses to everything, but what I decided to do was let's test it on Centipedes, because they're normally what kills you late to mid-game. These things have about 72% armor versus sharp, which is, all the ranged weapons, which is not great, but since they are what normally kills you, I'd like to know what's good against them. Now, when it came to the testing scenario, the weapons we chose to test were, well, all of these ones that are listed here. Oh, I forgot the bolt action. Well, I tested the bolt action and the auto pistol as well. I just threw them in because I just wanted to see. But the main ones I want to test were the assault rifle, minigun, the charge rifle, the heavy SMG, and the LMG. The LMG and the SMG I never really used too much, and I wanted to see how they stacked up against the three main weapons that everyone seems to prefer. The simplest plan I found here was I would just stack everyone down here. Each one is assigned as single centipede. All the centipedes are equipped with EMP grenades. It makes it much harder for them to fight back, which means it makes it much harder for them to injure the pawns, which means they get to shoot more accurately for longer and they don't end up getting distracted by, getting set on fire or something like that. Then once this guy here, who is the timer, makes it all the way to the end, that means that, we've hit the end of the timer, we crack open the number system, we go to the enemies, and we look at the damage taken. This is just one of the stats you can pull up. Then you add up all the damage taken. That gives you the average damage you did across all 10 of them. And then you repeat the same experiment 5 times over. You get the average of that, and you've averaged it over 50 centipedes, so it seems to be a decent average of the number. It's not perfect. You'd prefer like 1,000 or something like that, but if you want to do 1,000, you go for it. It took me long enough to do 10 as it was. Now, there was a few other things that had to be done here. For example, the minigun and the assault rifle can both reach out to this distance. But I didn't want to test them at that distance and then test all of these guns at this distance. It would sort of mess things up. So I placed all the centipedes at this distance for all the testing with all of these weapons. However, the SMG has a little bit less range than those weapons, so I put for the SMG testing, they had to be tested along here. So there were 3 tiles closer, unfortunately. But barring that, everything was tested at this range, except for the SMGs. Now, with all of that aside, there's some other things that had to be tested. For example, we started off with level 4 shooting using a regular assault rifle, and then later on we started adding in, more and more things until we eventually got up to the point where we had people on Luciferium, Go Juice, level 10 shooting, excellent assault rifles with bionic eyes. But let's have a quick look at the numbers, and please don't panic. Like I said, it's fine. It's fine. This is actually pretty straightforward. Simplest way to explain this here is this right over here. This is the damage that's done by an assault rifle on average if it's an excellent assault rifle, plus 10 shooting, bionic eye, on Luciferium, and Go Juice. That's an awful lot of bonuses, and this is the amount of damage it will do. Now, if you say subtract the Go Juice and just make it Luciferium, this is how much damage it will do, and this is the percentage of the total. I sort of use this level where you have an excellent weapon and all of those bonuses. This is sort of considered the max damage. It's not quite. You could probably get a little bit better. I was assuming that weapons would sort of max out once you got high enough on sight, accuracy, all that stuff. But no, it turns out you can definitely stretch it quite a bit before they start maxing out completely. You definitely see a slowdown in the gains, but it never really maxes. So all the weapons are graded on this as their maximum, and then it sort of goes down on a sliding scale. Now, I didn't test all the weapons in every single scenario. The assault rifle was the only one I did that in, and it just seems to have a gradual gain in damage all the way up depending on what you do. So what I decided to use for the main ones for all the rest of the weapons was just a level 4 shooter with a normal weapon, a level 10 shooter with an excellent weapon, and then, of course, the maxed out version just to see what the total maximum damage available to you is. The true dark horse here, though, was the SMG. It is, like these numbers down here, they're a percentage of the maximum damage you can get, and the heavy SMG is really noob-friendly. You give it to a weak shooter, and they'll actually get quite good damage out of it, the highest damage of all the weapons tested. Just because it turns out it's really good at just shooting stuff at low levels. However, it does max out rather quickly. Wait, no. Let me try and explain that differently. Compared to the assault rifle, for example, by the time they both get up to maxed out stats, it just seems to be drawing with the assault rifle. However, the assault rifle at this point, its massive range advantage is quite a benefit. The assault rifle is weaker up until you get to the really high levels. At that point, the assault rifle kind of catches up and will also have the range advantage on top of that, which is what makes it so good. The LMG, oh wow. Just don't use them. Wait, no. let me try and rephrase that slightly more politely. The LMG is sort of in an area of an effect weapon that has, well, it has two advantages going for it. One advantage is it's one of the few weapons that can stagger human-sized targets, meaning you could hit tribespeople and pirates with it and it will slow them down, meaning they're less likely to close the distance with you. The second advantage it has is it's sort of an area of effect weapon, so it does a bit of splash damage to the units around it because it's enforced miss radius, same as the minigun sort of thing. It's a minigun light, but with a stagger effect. Unfortunately, its DPS is just incredibly terrible. It has the lowest DPS of all of the weapons tested here. Well, the heavy SMG, the mini, the charge, and the assault rifle. It just has terrible DPS in pretty much all across the board. It comes out at 82% that of an assault rifle at maximum levels. So this thing is just useless, just absolutely useless. The only advantages it has is it staggers and it has a little bit of splash damage. However, I did some testing on infestations not too long ago, and the LMG barely came out better than the assault rifle against the infestations. As in, even with a target-rich environment where its splash damage would have an advantage, it still wasn't that great. It barely beat the assault rifle. So if you have a choice between an LMG and an assault rifle, take the assault rifle, to be honest. It's far better than the LMG. However, if it's a choice between the assault rifle and the heavy SMG, it's a little bit of a trickier scenario. If your person is not an amazing shooter, and by an amazing shooter, you're going to want to have at least an excellent assault rifle, plus 10 shooting, and a bionic eye, and even then, you might be better off just walking around your base with the heavy machine gun. It has really good DPS. It's very noob friendly. It's got better armor pierce than the assault rifle. It's actually quite a good weapon. The only thing it falls down on is its range. However, if you keep a bunch of, use this around your base, and then if drop pods come in, you've got your SMG ready to go, and then keep your other weapons in a box near your kill box so that you can equip when it needs be. If you don't use kill boxes, well, okay, it's a different scenario for you. But for the charge rifle and the minigun, dear lord, they just come out miles ahead of everything else. By the time you hit, say, an excellent weapon with level 10 shooting, they just crush everything. 1700 damage and 1600 damage here compared to, I mean, the SMG is the closest one with almost 1400 damage, but it still is just not coming close to the charge rifle and the minigun. And bear in mind, this minigun is an area of effect weapon, so it's better at splash. So the minigun on single targets, that's actually its weakest form, and it's still amazingly good. The downside of the minigun, of course, is it gives you a 0.40 movement penalty, and it weighs 10 kilos, so it's a bit of a hog. But if you're willing to take the hit, it's quite useful. The optimum, in my opinion, for these weapons, if you were trying to get the absolute perfect setup, would be charge rifles for walking around your base. They have excellent damage, excellent rate of fire, excellent everything, and quite decent range. Not quite as good as the assault rifle and the minigun, but they're quite good. And then I would keep a stack of miniguns right by the kill box just for that extra DPS when you need it. There's one more example I'd like to give of the miniguns and its superiority against Centipedes, but we'll cover that a bit later. I just want to have a quick glance at the auto pistol and the bolt action. Now, I tested the bolt action just with all of the additions to accuracy on it just to try, and it wasn't an optimum scenario. You saw on the video or on the game that it was quite a close area, so the bolt action didn't have range to work with, but still, its DPS is just, it couldn't beat the auto pistol. The auto pistol had better DPS against the Centipedes. So the bolt action and the auto pistol, I would not be bringing them to your kill box. I would be immediately upgrading to an LMG, which I just railed on there for being useless, has far better DPS than the auto pistol or the bolt action in those type of scenarios against Centipedes. So definitely just do not bring those for a DPS scenario. They're more... the auto pistol is if you can't get your hands on anything better, and the bolt action is if you're doing hunting or you're doing picking off enemies at range to, or say you have 4 or 5 of your units equipped with bolt actions, picking off meleers from a distance. These weapons here are the ones you're going to want to look at. Well, except for the LMG, the heavy SMG, the minigun, the charge rifle, and the assault rifle. And you're going to be aiming for having lots of charge rifles and miniguns. You will fill in the blanks with heavy SMGs and assault rifles for when you need them, like mid-game when you can't afford to just equip everyone with charges and minis. Finally, we have the one thing I never really tested before, and the results were quite intriguing, if not surprising. It was Masterwork and Legendary items. Now, I've been leaving these out up until this point because excellent works, up to excellent, weapons only give a bonus to accuracy. They don't do anything for your damage or armor penetration. However, a Masterwork weapon gives a 25% bonus to damage and armor penetration, and a Legendary, very difficult to acquire, gives a 50% bonus to damage and armor penetration. That's why I've been leaving them out, because they really will skew numbers quite a bit. But for testing these things, we might as well see how they do. And it gets a bit odd. Let's just go with the assault rifle first. It's probably the most straightforward of the two. And this is a Masterwork. Nope, that's not an excellent Masterwork. This is a Masterwork assault rifle with all of the other bells and whistles: 10 shooting, bionic eye, luciferium, and go juice. Now, it's only one bionic eye, by the way, just to double reiterate that. This gave a 47% damage increase. 47%. Now, if you remember from over here, this was a 25% damage increase. So why are we getting the 47%? Well, it's also the armor penetration increase. We're dealing with centipedes here, so they've got a fair chunk of armor on them, which means you get a massive bonus to your assault rifle damage. It's big enough that it actually beats out the charge rifle. This is just a standard issue excellent charge rifle. It gets 2266. This gets 2520. So you're looking at, if you have a Masterwork assault rifle, yes, it definitely beats the charge rifle, and it beats the minigun quite handily at this range and damage. If you have a Masterwork assault rifle, let's just say it's better than any charge rifle you're going to have, unless you've got a Masterwork charge rifle. And when we get into legendary territory, it's not quite as big again. You only get up to 176% over the 147 you were getting. Namely because I think the armor penetration has really kicked in already. You're not going to get as... You've already been getting most of your hits. You're just getting a few extra, plus the damage increase from the 25%. So legendary weapons and Masterwork weapons, just... they kick arse. That's all I can say. If you get a chance to use them, go for it. The charge rifle with a Masterwork charge rifle gets an 86% damage increase over an excellent. Now, I never bothered checking the Masterwork. I only went with legendary for these ones because honestly, I have no idea how many hundreds of tests I've run at this point. Just for example, here's a bunch of the data what I was just collecting. Each one of those numbers, that's 5 tests. Or wait, no, that's one test. That's another. It's a lot of testing. But yeah, I'll share the data and all that so you can go through it yourself if you want to fill in some of the blanks and just test a few things out. But the main winner here is the minigun. A legendary minigun doubles its damage. It's ludicrous. A legendary minigun on a single target will do almost as much damage as a legendary charge rifle. The two of them just start drawing out at that point, which is kind of crazy. When you think about it, it just means that your legendary minigun is going to be able to equal almost any weapon on the field. The only weapon that can come close is the charge rifle. However, the charge rifle, a legendary charge rifle, is still miles, like head and shoulders above an assault rifle, just miles and miles ahead. Now, I didn't include the SMG and the LMG. LMG because, well, it's pretty trash anyway. And the SMG because, well, at that point, you are going to want some range. Okay, it depends. Okay, if I had a Masterwork SMG, I'd probably use it. I just gave in the end and did the testing for the SMG just to be sure. I needed to know. Yes, a Masterwork SMG will beat out a excellent charge rifle. So if you have a Masterwork SMG or a Legendary SMG, it will beat out any excellent or worse guns. So what we've learned from this, or the ultimate lesson from all of this, is SMGs are actually really good with weak shooters, which I had no idea about. In fact, it beats out the assault rifle by quite a decent margin until you get up to the higher, the better shooting levels. Charge rifle, definitely the #1 damage dealer. Well, especially when we're dealing with heavily armored targets. Then after that, you're looking at the minigun is the second best damage dealer overall, and it's also got splash on top of that. So, well, its enforced mist radius means the mist bullets will definitely do more damage as well. So in a target-rich environment, it does really, really well. Excellent. If you have a legendary rifle, use it. If you have a Masterwork rifle, use it. After that, it's charge rifle, minigun, and then, well, it depends on SMG or heavy SMG or assault rifle, depending on your preferences. Well, depending on the skill level of the pawn. And as for the LMG, it does not really seem to have a place beyond, well, once you get to the better weapons, access to the better weapons, the LMG sort of, yeah, you can forget about it. Bolt rifle, it is a wonderful weapon in the early game for hunting and things like that, but I would not take it to a kill box, or unless you outrange the targets and they can't shoot back, don't bring it. As I mentioned, both of these spreadsheets will be available if you want to have a look at them and just go through the data yourself, or just fill in any of the blanks that are here. For testing reasons down here, you might want to know this. I made sure there was rain going on when this testing happened, namely because these, when you shoot at centipedes, they give you a large target bonus. So because they're such a large target size, you get an 80% bonus towards shooting them. So there's something to counteract that a bit and make the shooting more fair. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and good luck.